evening, everybody, and thank you for joining this Farm Advisory Service webinar on Biodiversity Audits Help with Habitat Mapping. We're just giving everybody there a few minutes to get in from the waiting room, but the numbers are starting to steadily tail off, so I think most of you are on now, so we'll get underway. I am Mary Dougalish and I am topic lead for the natural capital topic within the Farm Advisory Service, and I'm delighted to chair this webinar this evening. I'm joined by representatives from NatureScot and land mapping team within Scottish Government, and I'll introduce the individual speakers later on. In terms of asking questions this evening, hopefully somewhere on your screen, it varies depending on whether you're on a laptop or a phone, you can find the Zoom toolbar and you should see the Q&A element on that toolbar. As we're going through, please feel free to type any questions you have into there, and we will basically collate them, particularly if they're of a similar theme, and then we'll put them to all our panellists at the end. We have a separate section for Q&A. If we do get a significant number of questions, more than what we can deal with in the time frame, then we are already sending you a follow-up email with some other resources tomorrow. So we will include within that any other questions that we run out of time to deal with this evening. This webinar is being recorded, and that's to allow us to upload it onto the FAS YouTube channel to create a resource that you can come back and view again if there's any elements you would like to recap on. So, without further ado, we'll make a start and look at what is a biodiversity audit and what is required. So, a biodiversity audit is one element under the whole farm plan, of which there are 5. And it's an element that has a 5-year validity. So once prepared, you would need to update the information at least once every 5 years. And for 2025, a biodiversity audit is best described as a habitat map, or what you need to do is effectively create a habitat map. So when creating this habitat map for your land, it should include all land, including white land, but not seasonal land. So what do we mean by white land? So that's your land that is not currently mapped for agricultural purposes. So where a land parcel is mapped, you will have that lipid maybe starting NN, NO, NS. White land won't have that number, but it's still within your farm area. So farm woodlands may be a good example. So that's your white land, and you can include that and should include that on your biodiversity map. Could I just ask one of the other speakers to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? There is a message in the chat that people can't. Yeah, okay.
The only thing I would say, Valerie, is when I joined, I had to, where the little microphone is in the bottom corner, click it to give myself volume. So maybe that's what's causing the problem.
Okay. Yep. So down in the microphone, that's in the bottom left for me. Maybe just check the volume settings on that. Thank you, Ian. That's very useful. In terms of that minimum standard of what needs to go on that map, you need to select one habitat from the key that best describes the majority of the land cover for each field within your land area that you're mapping. So there's a key that meets the minimum standards, and we'll cover that later in the presentation and show you the habitats as part of that key. You should also, as part of the minimum standard, mark any individual features that cannot be seen on OS mapping. So that's the minimum standard. Don't worry about incurring penalties if you get the habitat type incorrect. The main thing here is that you're making an attempt to map the habitats. There are some that you maybe struggle to deter the difference between, you don't quite know which one to pick. It can be amended in future. So don't worry if you have a go at marking a habitat and maybe in time you realise actually that wasn't the best one. It can be adjusted. So don't worry about incurring a financial penalty based on the habitat type that you select. The main thing is get a habitat against each land parcel. One point to know at this point is if you have a supply chain biodiversity audit, make sure it includes a map that meets that minimum standard. And again, coming back to that key, list the habitats that are part of the key. So not all supply chain biodiversity audits will have a map, but where it does have a map that meets that minimum standard, it would be accepted as part of the whole farm plan process. So there's just one quick question just came in there that I'm just going to deal with at this stage. So in terms of the supply chain biodiversity audit, what I mean by the term supply chain there is there are some farming businesses who may be doing a biodiversity audit as part of LEAF accreditation to produce or sell a particular product. It might be to a particular sort of firm, be that supermarket or a company that they are selling their produce to. Some of those through contracts will have a need to have a biodiversity audit already. So if there are any businesses in those schemes, they may have something that is termed a biodiversity audit, but it may not necessarily meet the minimum standards for whole farm plan because a biodiversity audit can take lots of different forms. So that's what I was referring to there. So thank you for that question. So before I hand over to our first panelist, we're just going to look at the ways to map. So we'll just work through each of these individually. So our first one is to use the mapping system on rural payments and services. So within the mapping programme, it's called maybe RPNS Map Viewer. Within the mapping portal, there's an Edit Habitats view, and you will get more detail on this later in the webinar. You can do it within the Edit Habitats view, and there's full guidance available from the land mapping team on how to do this. And also, the Farm Advisory Service have a recorded demo on how to create a map on that system, and that's one of the resources and links that we'll be emailing you out tomorrow. Just one point to note on this one, if you use your own mapping software as part of your farm management and maybe have shape files for habitat maps from that system, you can submit these using RPNS Map Viewer. Now, we're not going to go too much detail into that tonight, just because it might not apply to everybody, or it might tend to apply to a smaller percentage of people who are regularly using mapping software. But if you do have any questions on that, please just type them into the Q&A box. The second method is you can annotate a paper map. So take a map of the farm and then mark on it yourself the habitats present. So the example I've got on the screen does use colours, but you don't need to use specific colours as long as you include a key alongside the map that explains what you have marked and what coding and system you've used to be able to identify the habitats. The one main thing to note about this one is if you use the annotated paper map, you would need to submit directly that map to the land mapping team via email or post, versus it being on the Rural Payments and Services Map Viewer system already. The list format, so that method involves a list of lipids, so the identifier numbers back to those NN, NS, NO numbers, a list of all those lipids for your farm, and then beside that, the main habitat in each field. So that one can work well where there is just, a single habitat per field, and it's all quite nice and succinct and tidy. But again, that one supplying directly to the land mapping team. And we'll share details on how you do that as part of the next section of the webinar. And the final method is using the Farm Biodiversity Scotland app. The app is still on pilot for 2025, and we'll hear more details on that from the NatureScot team further into the webinar. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and I'm going to invite Neil, Stephen, and Wayne Bowden from the land mapping team to share their screen. They're going to be the next section of our webinar. And we're also joined this evening by Ian Carmichael from the Whole Farm Plan team in Scottish Government, who can answer some questions later on as well. So I'll hand over to Neil, who's going to walk us through where to find the viewer, the guidance, how to submit the map, and some other top tips. So over to you.
Thank you very for that. So yeah, my name is Neil Stephen. I'm a team leader in the land mapping team. So hopefully you can see my screen and hear me okay. So yeah, but basically I'm just going to kind of demonstrate where you can find kind of guidance documents on habitats, where they can be found on the Rural Payments website. How to access the LIPIS graphical editor that allows you to submit your habitat proposals to the land mapping team online. How to download your habitat maps, and how to submit an annotated map or list, as I was just talking about, to the land mapping team via email or post. So yeah, so accessing the guidance, we'll just go over that first. So here I am on just the kind of landing page on the Rural Payments and Services website. So if you just scroll down under this section, Future of Agricultural Support, click on that. And then there's a section here, Whole Farm Plan Full Guidance. So today we're talking about the biodiversity audit. So there's a section here for that. clicking on that, and then that's got kind of quite comprehensive information and guidance for the biodiversity audit, a bit of background, who needs it, minimum standards, lifespan, ways to complete the biodiversity audit. I'm going to go over some of those today. And then it also has, you've got the address here. If you're sending your maps or lists via post, the address to send them to in the land mapping team, and I will give you the email address later as well. And then if we go to the annexes section here, so this gives you a full list of all the habitat types with a summary and also a detailed description of each habitat, and that should kind of assist you when trying to decide which specific habitat type you should be selecting when you're creating your map. So that's the whole farm plan guidance, and then for the actual guidance for capturing your habitats using our system, there's an option here to select the land mapping system, and then there is LIPIS guidance documents and tutorial videos. So this has guidance for all the different kind of case types you can submit to us. So it also includes for if you're submitting like LMFs, land maintenance forms online, or ecological focus areas changes to those online. There's guidance there. But tonight we're specifically looking at habitats. So there's a bit here, a section here, 4.4 habitat feature change. So selecting that, sorry, has a comprehensive habitat mapping guidance document. And then underneath that, there's links to YouTube videos that we've created that shows you how to capture each kind of specific habitat type, and also using the different mapping tools and things like that. So that's a good resource as well. Okay, so when it comes to actually submitting the habitat proposals online, you first need to log into the into your rural payments portal. So log into that, and then habitats are submitted using the editor that's linked to the map viewer. So this is accessed by clicking locations and then clicking on map, and this brings up the map viewer in a new tab. So the map viewer, sorry, can be used for a range of tasks, including viewing maps of your land, submitting online land maintenance forms and online ecological focus areas, and also creating bespoke maps. So on this page on the left-hand side, each location code connected with your business or that you are mandated to view will be displayed under the My Locations tab. And then you can click on the particular location code, and that will zoom to that. Okay, I'll slow down a little bit. I think I'm rushing through this. So yeah, so the on the left-hand side, as I said, you have a list of all the location codes that are associated with your business. You can click view here, and that will take you to that particular location code to view on the map. There we go. So we can zoom in on that, and you can see your location code. And on the left-hand side, we have all the lipids that are associated with that particular location code. To access a habitat case, you first need to choose the location code. In this case, we've just got one. And then from the actions drop-down, we can select Edit Habitats. And then this will open up a new tab in the graphical editor in a new window, and you have multiple, if you have multiple location codes associated with your business, you will need to submit habitats separately for each location code. So I'm not going to go into detail here on how to actually capture the habitats in the graphical editor. As Vary mentioned, there was a comprehensive video has been created that goes through that entire process. So, sorry, let me one moment. So 2 points before move on. If you're having issues capturing habitats using this tool, you can contact the land mapping team and we can access this internally. And we can see if you've started to capture some habitats but you're having some issues, we can access this internally, view what you've done so far, and potentially make amendments. But we cannot submit the case on your behalf, but we can assist. But once we're done, you have to log in yourself and click finish to submit. And another point, as habitats can be captured outside of your parcel boundaries in what we call white space. Sorry, I've got a question here that's come up saying, can you save and return? So yes, absolutely. So any changes you make, save automatically. So all you need to do is just close the tab if you want to come out of it, and any changes you made at that point will be saved. And then when you come in and access, again, all of the changes you previously made will still be there. The only way to get rid of all those changes would be to cancel all changes, and that will kind of cancel the case. But yeah, anything you do, as long as you kind of confirm the change, will be saved automatically. So yeah, or if you have some issue where you get kicked out, or if your computer crashes or something like that, anything you've done up to that point will be saved automatically. So yeah, you don't need to worry about that. So as I was saying about the white space, so any habitats you've captured out with your parcel boundaries, you should ensure that the farm boundary layer is amended to cover that land. So the farm boundary layer is what we can see in this kind of opaque fill at the moment. So basically the rule is that kind of basically the farm boundary should cover all of the parcels on your location code, plus any habitats that exist within white space. But again, if you watch the guidance video that's previously been created, they'll go into a lot more detail about that. But this is also something that the land mapping team will be checking. So if the farm boundary isn't quite right, we will go in and we will amend that layer to make sure it covers everything that it should. So if you don't want to use the online tools to actually map out the habitats for us, you can use the system to upload a set of pre-drawn maps or a list of habitats that you wish to have assigned. When you make a submission like this, the land mapping team will take this information and create a habitat map for you. You can download a map to annotate from the map viewer, or contact the land mapping team to send you one via post. So to download a map from the map viewer, just from the toolbar here, there's a little icon, looks like a little printer. So we click on that and export habitat maps. And then you just need to enter the location code for which you would like to export maps from. And it's just one location code at a time. Press continue. So it's saying select which habitat group to export. So in this case, we've not actually captured any habitats yet, so we can just leave that blank. This would be useful once we have captured the habitats. If you wish to download a map showing the habitats that have been mapped by us, then you can select which ones you want. Click continue, and then you can select the background layer. So you can have aerial photography, you can have the OS raster layer, or you can have nothing. So it's just a blank background. For the purposes of annotating your own habitats, it probably makes sense to select none. So that'll ensure that it's kind of quite clear what you've captured. I've got an example of this in a moment. So select none, continue, and then you can basically wait, and the set of maps will download automatically, as has been done here. Or there was an option there to enter your email address. If you've got a particularly large location code, it might take longer to download. You can enter your email address, and then an email will be sent with a link once the maps are ready to download. So just an example of what the blank maps can look like. So as you can see, no background selected. And you can see you've got the outline of the parcels on the location code. So then you can use a pen or something like that, a pencil or something like that, annotate those that we can then send back to us. So the kind of ways that you can submit those to the land mapping team. So you can actually do it within this case type, and this is probably the quickest way to get it to us. So along the top in the toolbar, there is an upload documents button, and you can click that, and then you can drag and drop the map or list that you have created. So you can just drag it in, and then you just have to add a note, and you select submit, and that will upload the document to the case, and then you can just click finish, and that will come through to us in the team, and we'll see that you've uploaded the map, and then we can go ahead and capture the habitats. If you are sending in a map or a list, you should ensure that that is clearly annotated, and that it is clear which habitats should be assigned to which parcel. So it's just an example of an annotated map here. So there we go. So there's one for this location code. So you can see we've got the color references, and then we've got a table which shows the specific habitat type, and then that relates to the specific color. So that's nice and clear for us that we can then take that information and capture the habitats on the system. Or you can select a table where we've got the particular lipid and then the habitat type clearly identified on the table. Oops. Okay, so alternatively, if you'd rather not use the online system, you can send a map or list to us at the land mapping team mailbox at landmappingteam@gov.scot, or by post, and I will show these addresses afterwards. If you're submitting via email or post, just please ensure that your contact details are provided on the submission, along by clearly showing the kind of location codes that effectively you would like to capture the habitats for. So if you submit your habitats using the online tools, you'll receive a notification letter, a notification email, and a letter in your rural payments communications log when completed. If you send your maps or list to us via email or post, or they were mapped using the NatureScot app, you will not get a letter sent to the communications log, but you will receive an email or letter notifying you of completion of mapping. That depends on your communication preferences in rural payments. You should ensure this is done before the 15th of May to avoid being late on your 2025 SAF. And once you've received confirmation that your habitats have been mapped, you can download your habitat maps and shapefiles from the map viewer. So you can download your habitat map using the method I demonstrated previously. So that was just in the map viewer and the export habitats. Okay, and I've just been asked to kind of remind everyone that the map does not should not be uploaded with the SAF. I think there is a tick box within the application that you just need to tick to say that you have completed the mapping. So sorry, let me one moment. So yes, you can download your map using the method I demonstrated previously, and here's an example of a completed habitat map, and you can see all the different color references on the map, and then at the end of the map, there's a habitat map key with color references to show you which the particular color the habitat which habitat is referred to by each individual color. You can also download shapefiles of your habitats after they've been captured, And again, that's just accessed through the map viewer. And then there's an option here to download habitat feature shapefile. And then you just enter your location code. In this case, you can actually have multiple location codes within one shapefile. So you just enter the location codes and then just put a comma in between each location code, and the system will then download a shapefile contained in a zip file containing all of your habitats. So yeah, so this concludes the demonstration. So if you require any further information, please visit the Rural Payments website or contact the land mapping team at landmappingteam@gov.scot, or you can write to us at the address shown on the screen there. Yeah, so that's me finished there. I don't know if Wayne, if there's anything you wanted me to show or anything.
Yeah, so you'll also get a table as well listing all your habitats, saying what lipid they're in and the areas. So so you don't have to try and measure it on the map. The table will have everything you need in it, and it does individual features as well as consolidated amounts.
Yep. So there's the table there. So it shows all the habitat types, the area that I've covered, and the other attributes that you will have entered when mapping the habitats.
And if you use your area office to download maps or shapefiles, they're unable to download the shapefile. So if you're unable to do it yourself but want them, you'll need to contact the land mapping team, and we can do it on your behalf and send them to you. It's just the area officers do not have the functionality.
Okay, super. Thank you very much, Neil, for that demo, and Wayne for not only picking up some questions in the chat as Neil was going along there, but also that useful information and tip regarding accessing shapefiles if people aren't downloading them directly off the system. Okay, I think we're all tidied up on questions at the moment. So I'd now just like to hand over to Kirsty and Celine, who are agricultural officers with NatureScot, and they're going to give us some further guidance on identifying habitats, mapping, and also the Farm Biodiversity Scotland app.
Right, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Kirsty Hutchison. I'm one of the agricultural officers in the NatureScot agricultural team. So tonight I'm just going to cover some key areas for the biodiversity audit. So I'll cover the minimum standards for habitat mapping for 2025. I'll also cover if you've already got an agri-environment climate scheme farm environment assessment map. I'll go into a bit more detail on the whole farm plan habitat and feature key. And then I'll just do a little bit more on help with identifying grasslands and show you the NatureScot grassland selector tool that we've put onto our website. So in terms of minimum standards for 2025, the key thing is to create a habitat map. And that's really to give you the ability to baseline all the habitats and features you've got that are already delivering for biodiversity. So as Barry said, it's to cover all the land managed on a permanent basis, including any land without an LPID or white space. If you've got common grazing shares or seasonal land, you don't need to map these for 2025, but you do if it's a single business, for example, a sheep stock club managing common grazings and doing one support claim, in which case you will do a biodiversity audit. So in terms of the habitat map, the minimum requirement is to allocate at least one habitat, which best describes the majority of each field. And you have to use the whole farm plan habitat and feature key. In addition, mapping linear features which are not visible in Ordnance Survey, often features such as hedges, dikes, lines of trees, they won't show in Ordnance Survey. In general, watercourses will show up, but you may have to mark seasonal ditches that dry up for part of the year. So those are just the additional linear features you might need to put in. So for anyone that's got a farm environment assessment map who's already in EECS, any of the maps completed from 2022 to 2024 do partially meet the minimum standard, but they will need just a bit of updating. So the first thing to do is to align the habitats to the 2025 Whole Farm Plan Habitat and Feature Key, because that's been updated for 2025 to cover a wider range of habitat types than you might have put in your EECS application. The other thing that you'll have to do is that obviously the white land wasn't mapped for EECS FEA maps, and there was also no requirement to map every single field. So for example, improved grassland, arable fields, those type of areas won't have been mapped. So you just need to allocate a habitat type to all those fields as well. One of the key things though is you do need to send a copy of that map if you want to use the FEA map with the edits to the land mapping team, and ask them to capture it, and they can then use it to count for your biodiversity audit in 2025. If you're in the process of doing an EECS application for 2025, we have fully aligned the habitat key on the EECS guidance pages with the Whole Farm Plan habitat key. So the only things you'd need to do to ensure that it meets the BA requirements is to allocate a habitat to all fields and whiteland and to map all linear features. And again, the RPNS EECS application system is not directly matched to the mapping team. So you do, again, need to send them a copy of that map. And if you've got an agent or an advisor doing your map for you, you can ask them to contact the mapping team, and they could provide you with, they can provide them with shapefiles or a PDF map. It's worth bearing in mind that EECS doesn't close for applications until June this year. So if you do want that 2025 map to count for your biodiversity audit, you will need to get it to the land mapping team in time for the SAF deadline on the 15th of May. But otherwise, if you've got that map ready in June, then it would be able to be submitted for use in 2026 so that you've met your biodiversity audit requirements. So we've put an example FEA map that would meet the minimum standards on the EECS guidance pages. So you can see there it's got all the habitats listed, and it's got a habitat and feature assigned for the whole of the farm. So I just wanted to go through in a bit of detail the habitat key. Just for some background, we were requested to produce quite a straightforward key and a biodiversity audit that farmers could complete themselves. So the starting point for this was the original EECS FEA mapping requirements and the habitat key that was developed for that. We then took that and working with farm conservation advisors, NatureScot staff, we did a co-design process, and we then further refined that with testing with farmers who were involved in the piloting last year. So this final key has been agreed with Scottish Government Whole Farm Plan team and the land mapping team, and this will be the key that we'll use going forward. So there are 9 categories in total. Within each category, there's then sub features and categories. So these are the first 4. So we've got cropped land, which will cover arable habitats. We've then got the 4 main grassland categories that we've identified, wetland categories and woodland categories. The last 4 are uplands and peatlands, which cover the various habitat types you'd find off and above the hill dike or in peatland. Coastal categories, linear features, so again that's got hedges, dikes, rivers and streams, trees, and then the only other habitats that you have to map are bracken, but that's only bracken where there's no grazing ground underneath, so dense bracken, invasive non-native plants which can be marked as a point feature or an area, and other general point features which could be things like archaeological sites or ponds, things like that. So for all of those different habitat types, there's detailed guidance. So Neil showed you quickly, but basically this is where you find it on these annexes, and if you click on each of these individual annexes, that will go into the detailed guidance. So I've just given one example, which is for the cropland. So you'll see this sort of basic habitat description, and then we go into a bit more detail. For some of these, it's very easily identified from the basic description, but other ones where there might be some nuances or some additional things to consider that would help you make a decision, we've gone for more detailed guidance. So from the piloting work, one of the habitat types that did cause most queries was the grassland. So I thought I'd just go through that in a little bit more detail. So the 4 key grassland types are improved grassland, semi-improved, unimproved, and rush pasture. Now, often you'll be able to ascertain a lot of the grassland from the current agricultural practices in the field, rather than having to go out and check sites. But it's often more likely to be the semi-improved and the unimproved grasslands where you may have to go out in the field and consider more the habitat composition. But on the back of that, what we've done in NatureScot is to develop a grassland selector tool, and this basically just is a series of questions to help you identify the grasslands more easily. So the first section is to basically allow you to identify other grasslands that actually fall into different categories. So the first one is if it's part of an arable rotation, and basically temporary grass is then allocated to the arable crop category. If you click on each of these, answer the question for that field, then it will go to a drop down which will give a bit more information on that habitat type and some images. So the second one is if it's dominated by soft rush, then that would be allocated as rush pasture. If it's waterlogged grassland, that's allocated as wet marshy grassland. And if it's rough grazing on hill, moorland or mountain, generally above the hill dike, then it's actually mapped as upland grassland under the uplands and peatlands category. The second section helps you identify improved grasslands. Now this can either be based on the percentage of more productive grass varieties and clover in the sward, but often you'll be able to ascertain this grassland type just by the ongoing management of the fields. They'll tend to be subject to regular inputs of farm urban manure, slurry, inorganic fertilisers and lime. So often you can sit with your IX map around the kitchen table and you'll be able to allocate a lot of these grasslands quite easily. Question 3 is for recently created species-rich grasslands. So that picks up any, if you've been in an agri-environment scheme, for example, EECS, and you've created species-rich grassland from more improved grassland sites, then they've got their own category and they would automatically be recorded as unimproved grassland. And the final section for the grassland tool is to allow you to work out whether it's semi-improved grassland or unimproved grassland. And again, that's generally, you'll be able to pick up the more unimproved because it's those areas that haven't been ploughed and haven't had many inputs. The unimproved category will also include more species-rich ground and more rough grazing as well that's on the in-by. So the other guidance that we've produced as well is we've got a dedicated biodiversity audit page on the NatureScot website. We've got some additional guidance on there, including a range of videos. So we've got one on to help identify uplands and peatlands, the different habitats within that category, one on the different woodland habitats, and one on the grassland habitats. And what we'll do is provide a link to this additional information to Mari, which she can send out in a follow-up email. There's also information on the NatureScot Farm Biodiversity Scotland tool that we're currently piloting to allow farmers to undertake a biodiversity audit. And Celine will cover this in her slides. So I shall just pass over to Celine if I stop sharing.
Okay, fantastic. Good evening, everybody. I'm Celine Delarbre. I'm one of the agriculture officer of the agricultural team of NatureScot, also part of the Farming with Nature team. So I've helped design the pilot that I'm going to present to you. So it's just a few slides to introduce our biodiversity audit pilot. And I won't go into too many detail, but you can ask us any questions. So the NatureScot Biodiversity Audit pilot, it's a commission from the Scottish Government as part of the agricultural reform. We were asked to design a simple way for farmers and crofters to produce a baseline habitat map of their farm, and that would also fit the whole farm plan requirement. So the habitat and feature map can then be easily condition assessed if desired. It's not a requirement for 2025 for the whole farm plan, but we're testing things a bit further. That pilot. The app is free to use. We have a mobile app and then the web tool, and it's not gonna have to be paid for. And the pilot is part of a wider program, a Farming with Nature program, to help support sustainable food production, climate, and biodiversity. So we tested the app and the web tool last year with more than 250 farmers and crofters. We're very grateful for all the feedback and question we had. So it's very much like a co-design exercise to make sure that we get things right and stay nice and simple. I'll just show you what it looks like. So you've got a web tool that you can use in the farm office on your computer, and you've got a phone app on both Android and iPhone that you can take in the field if you want to map things specifically in the field. So the web tool, you're going to have basically your farm or your farms. You're going to have your habitat map, and you're going to have all the guidance, all the videos, and things may be a little bit easier to see, a little bit more detail. That you're going to have to, if you want to spend a bit more time kind of like learning about the tool. So you can map absolutely everything on the web tool with maybe a little bit more precision that you would do in the field, zoom in quite a lot. And then you have, it's probably easier to access like more guidance in more details on the web tool. So I've just showing a couple of screenshots. We've got videos that with like screen captures and also written text and also infographics to explain exactly how to use all the different mapping tools or all the different icons, etc. So we try to make it as detailed and as clear as possible. And then the phone app, so it's great if you take this in the field, but obviously, depending on the size of your phone and the size of your finger, it might not be super precise and super easy to navigate. So you also have your farm map, your different base layer, and you can add the features, you can add the habitat and draw things and add white space as well in the app itself on the go in the field. You also have help and guidance on the app itself on your phone. Obviously, everything's a little bit smaller, so maybe not as easy to see. And both on the web platform and the app, you can get in touch with us fairly quickly if you've got, any issues. There's a little get in touch where like people basically can answer you hopefully as quickly as we can if you have any questions. So it's very much a pilot. We're still testing this tool and probably get still a few things wrong. So we're still looking for farmers, crofters to help us make progress on this. So if you want to apply to be part of the pilot, you've got different ways of doing this. So you can go directly on the website. go on the App Store for iPhone or the Play Store for Android, or email us at biodiversity.audit@nature.scot. You'll find, so I've put all the links there that will be in the follow-up email. By just Googling Biodiversity Audit NatureScot, you should find all the details fairly easily. And that's it from me.
Super, thank you very much. So naturally we were onto our Q&A. So actually there's a couple of questions come in that probably link best to Kirsty and Celine. So we'll just go to those first. So if I can start with one that sort of followed on from Kirsty's presentation, which is just around this sort of, I suppose it's sort of like multi-habitats in a field. So the question is, what percentage area of a field should be allocated? So it's probably coming back to the rushes. What if they're up to 25% in some fields? How should, that be handled? I suppose that sort of, what if there's multiple features and habitats in an area?
Well, to meet the minimum standards for 2025, you can allocate the whole field with the most dominant habitat type. If, however, you want to show sort of an area of wetland or rush and the rest of the field's improved grassland, you could draw that on your map, and the mapping team will be able to allocate the two different habitats in the same field for you. But as I say, the minimum requirement is just one habitat. So it's really how much detail you want to go with.
Super, thank you very much. And the next one I'll actually put to Celine and just to the attendees. We've got a few questions here today, but we would have time if there are any others, please just pop them into the Q&A. It's a question on the app of, can you print out the map from the app?
From the web tool, you can export and print from the app. I would have to double check this. I'm not sure you can do as much on the phone app as you would do on the web tool. So I'm pretty sure that you can export and print from the web tool. The app directly, I would have to double check this. So I'll double check that, Mary, and we'll let you know so you can put that in the email.
Super, thank you very much for that. So yeah, we'll add that to tomorrow's email. So maybe just again keeping, oh sorry, Wayne, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to add on that, Mary and Celine, if you're thinking about exporting a map from the actual app, there's no need to, because we'll go into the app and copy the data across. So if you think you need to export it from the app and send it to us, there's no need. We'll do that.
Yes, I think there's a question there that came up in the Q&A. So just to make it clear, so the NatureScot app, if you're using this to do your mapping for the biodiversity audit, you'll have to fulfill all the minimum requirements. So we're using the red key, obviously, but you guys will definitely have to map the white lands and make sure that you fit all the criteria. And then the NatureScot app will share the information with the land mapping team. By people that are part of the pilot will most likely take a box, say that they are done, and that NatureScot will then pass on the information when you guys are done. But just make sure that you're still very much fitting the minimum requirement, because we can't do that for you, basically.
Super, thank you. So yeah, hopefully that answers that latest question there of, how does the app link to the rural payments and services? I would assume you were meaning there for submitting, but if not, please come back again. So just a couple of other questions. This one I'll just put out maybe wider to our Scottish Government representatives. The letter or communication log notification when a map or a list or an annotated paper map is submitted, can we just clarify, is that received once, there was a term used, once mapping is complete, so is that once the updates are done, rather than, let's just say for example there's somebody who posted a document in, will they get any notification to let them know when that has arrived with the team and therefore is there by the 15th of May? If you could just clarify the timings of those notifications, that'd be great.
So we won't be notifying that we've received something. We have quite a quick turnaround. So we aim to get it turned around within a week. That all depends on numbers, obviously. But yeah, so we'll notify you once it's done.
Okay, super. Thank you very much, Wayne. And I'll just go in with another one on the app here that's come in through the Q&A. Will the app be ready to use before the deadline? Celine, I wonder, is it just worth reiterating the pilot and the timings for that?
Yeah, so people that join the pilot are very much going to be able to do their map before the deadline. So the app, the pilot is ready to use very much now, with all this maybe imperfections, but it's ready to go right now. And the people that have joined last year testing will be contacted again this year to make sure that they know what's going on for this year.
Super, thank you. And that actually maybe quite nicely leads on to the next question, which is obviously we've got quite a few people on the call here tonight who are looking to do a map by the 15th of May 2025. You mentioned there's still spaces on the pilot. Do they need to indicate in any way that they are, looking to use it as one of the options by the 15th of May, or is, there's still space in the pilot for them to join and they just go through the usual joining process?
Yeah, just send us an email and as I put up on the slide and you'll see in the follow-up email, just contact us. Obviously, we're trying to prioritize people that really want to tick that box for this year. So I'm sure it helps joining the pilot if you mention that this is one of the requirements you want to fit this year. But yeah, the pilot is open.
Super, thank you very much, Celine. And I think there is just one other question here, and again, this one could probably be opened to the floor. It's around that list format option. We've obviously looked at the ways to map. The list format is one that's there. How would that work? Is that an option where there are linear features, or is that, how almost do you map that? It's nice and clear, that there'd be the lipid and then there'd be that main habitat, as we've spoken about, be that cropland, improved grassland, but how can the list feature be used for linear features?
So it's quite simple. So it comes in and says this lipid has this feature in the middle of it, and then you can put on the western boundary it has a hedge, because when we draw it, we'll be looking at the aerial photography. We will see it, so we know where to draw it to. So you could say that, and we'll capture it at the same time. If we have it, if it's confusing, don't worry, we will contact you to try and figure out what you're trying to put across. We won't just go, oh, we don't understand that, we'll ignore it. We will contact you and try and find out what it is.
Okay, super, thank you, Wayne. Just one there, maybe just within the audience, just wondering, that will be a bit of confusion, which we can hopefully clarify here as to why there are two options for the mapping, so the NatureScot tool and the rural payment tool. So I suppose maybe initial thought from me on that before I open it to the floor is probably, that rural payments and services mapping system has existed. It does other features. It's there to do other things, and it's effectively as a method, but there was maybe desire or interest in having an alternative method. The rural payments, for example, you can't, well, you could try if you wanted, but I don't think I'd like to try in that mapping portal on my phone, whereas I suppose then an app allows people to be on the move and use that. But I'll open that to the floor, and I think, Ian, would you like to go first on that one?
Yeah, so the RPS LIPIS is the key, is the home for habitat map, the whole farm plan. So home farm plan is a requirement for BPS this year and the futures. So it's the mapping data is required for the Scottish Government or for TUI capture on LIPIS. And like you said, RPS View has been there for a number of years. We also came up with the alternative solution of paper maps and also the habitat list in a format with a single habitat per lipid. So that was the two keys. And the NatureScot app has come along and on a trial basis, and it is compatible with the whole farm plan.
Okay, Celine.
Yeah, also to people that obviously the map, the app and the web tool can be used for the whole farm plan requirements, but we're testing things a bit further in terms of trying to do habitat assessment and other things that it's not a requirement for the whole farm plan for this year, but that was part of what the Scottish Government asked us, is to try all the things as a pilot. So obviously, the app can be used for this year to fulfill the requirement, but we're doing a little bit more testing than just this, basically. So it's a bit of a different setup, and this is why it's still very much a pilot, because we're doing more kind of sandboxes, kind of testing type with farmers.
Yeah, no, super. Thank you both for that information. That clarifies that nicely. I'll actually just keep on yourself, Celine, if that's okay. There's a question of, can agents sign up to the pilot?
No, sorry. It's you need a BRN to be able to sign up, and you need to be the person responsible for the farm, because the app is very much designed for farmers to try to do this themselves. So you can add agents to your team. So if the farmer signed up, then you can kind of add different people that can then use the app with you and for you. But the farmers, him or herself, need to sign up first, and then the agent can join.
Okay. Super, thank you. So we'll just go through these questions in order. So again, it is another app-related one to start with. So I don't know if this one's meant if their map is not ready for the 2025 claim. So if it's somebody not doing their map for that, the question is, will it be easier to complete on the app when ready? So I think just reiterating that the app is available now. It still just is on a pilot, but basically all that means is the number of people that can sign up is limited, just to manage that, and again, still allow time for testing and tweaks. Would that be fair to say, Celine?
Yes, it's still very much work in progress. So this is why it's still very much pilot, but it is ready to go and functional to fulfill the requirement for this year.
Kirsty.
Yeah, it was one of the things I forgot to say, but if you don't have to do your biodiversity audit for 2025, the best time to actually identify habitats is in the summer months. So I'd be saying that anyone that needs to do biodiversity audit for 2026 is to actually go out and do the mapping in the summer, because that's the best time to recognise, for species-rich grass and when things are in flower, just the range of habitats you'll have, and it's also the easiest time to look at the different grassland types as well.
Thank you. No, very good point there, Kirsty. Just a question on the NatureScot tool. Can the NatureScot tool measure areas by GPS?
So I think our mapping tool is still very basic. So it's very much a drawing tool more than anything else. I would need to double check if you can integrate any other information, but I don't think, Kirsty, I'm looking at you, I'm not sure. My guess is that it wouldn't be, and you have to draw things. But again, I would double check. It would make sense to be able to import GPS information, but because our app is still really basic, it might just be like a drawing job than importing GPS information.
Kirsty, did you want to add anything?
I was just thinking we can go away and ask that question, but as far as I'm aware, it is just map drawing.
So just because it is a very pertinent query, we will finish on this one, which are, what are the penalties from 2026 if you get the habitats wrong? Would somebody on the call just like to pick that one up? Ian, certainly, please.
Yes, I'll take up. So there won't be any penalties for getting it wrong ever. So if it's picked up at a land inspection, the inspector will kind of discuss it with you and suggest maybe that it should be another habitat or get the update to it, but it won't be penalised. There will be no penalties applied for selecting an incorrect habitat.
So thank you very much to everybody for joining this evening, and also to our speakers for sharing their expertise. So as we've mentioned a few times, tomorrow you will receive an email. It will have a link to a survey where you can give us feedback on tonight's webinar, and that's always helpful to the Farm Advisory Service to allow us to continue adapting what we provide depending on what you're looking for. So please take time to do that. And also within that email, there will be the guidance links in the recording to the demo, and all these other kind of web links and contact addresses and email addresses as have been referred to during tonight's webinar. And also, if there is anybody else who's looking for sort of further support on biodiversity audits, the Farm Advisory Service do during the summer run on-farm biodiversity audit sort of mapping events, and we have got some of those planned again for this summer, and they will be publicised through the Farm Advisory Service if you're a newsletter subscriber, and also just on our general events page on the website. So please do look out for those if you're looking for more. And to those of you who are looking to complete your biodiversity audit for the 15th of May, I hope you now have a good handle on what you need to do. And thank you very much for everybody's time this evening.